Hello, my dears. It's Katie, and I'm here today to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I love doing this tag every single year, and I love watching everybody's version of it. It's just a really fun way to check in and see what everybody's been up to. But I think I came to the conclusion recently that there are actually multiple versions of this tag. They're like the same, but a few people have added extra questions, and I think I'm doing a different one this year than I have in the past, but whatever. I'm doing this one. This one's fun. So, without further ado, let's get into the questions. 1. What's the best book that you've read in 2020? I actually kind of had a hard time with this because there were a couple of books that I ended up really loving, but ultimately I ended up going with The Wolf and the Whale by Jordana Max Brodsky, and I absolutely loved everything about this book. It's immersive, it's atmospheric, it's just the perfect one to read. It takes place, it follows like indigenous people, and it's just everything about it is wonderful and stunning, and I absolutely adored it. And I really implore more people to read it because it is incredibly well done. I mean, yes, does it have difficult topics to read about? Yes, but it is so worth it and so incredibly well done, and if you can't tell, I loved it. So definitely go check that one out. Question 2, what's the best sequel you've read in 2020? Interestingly enough, I've actually read quite a few sequels, but one that I ended up really loving was A Sprinkle of Spirits by Anna Mariano. It's the second book in the Love, Sugar, Magic series, and Kara introduced it to me, and I absolutely loved the second one. I mean, I liked the third one a lot too, but I don't know. It's definitely kind of tied between those two, but I really liked the second one. I liked the introduction of different magic. I liked the dynamics between the characters. I liked to see the growth. I don't know, it's just really lovely. And baking magic, like that's something that I've really come to love this year. I guess I should say come to know that it existed, and have realized that it's something that I love. So yes, more baking magic things, please. Number 3, new release that you haven't read yet but you want to. And that for me is The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by, I forget who the author is, so I'll just put a thing here. And all I know is it's like queer romance, but like fantasy with pirates and things. And I'm like, I like all of those things. Queer stuff, pirates, sea, fantasy, historical things. Give it to me. Give it to me. One day, I will get my hands on that book, and then I will devour it in like a couple of days. I'm really excited to get to that one. 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So these are always really tricky questions for me to answer because I tend not to read new releases or even kind of keep track of them. I know that there are things that are coming out in the second half of the year that I want to get to, but I don't know. I don't want to say that like they're my most anticipated read for this year because I don't know if I'm going to get to them this year. But for instance, I'm really looking forward to the 4th Stormlight book. I'm getting ready to start Stormlight, and I should be finished with Sanderson's Cosmere by the time the 4th Cosmere comes out. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it or if I'm going to be able to even read it this year. So while I'm looking forward to it, I don't know if I'm going to love Stormlight. Like, I'm expecting to, but I can't definitively say that it's a book that I'm really excited to read. I'm also looking forward to the 2nd Frostheart book, which I always forget the name of. I read the first book of that earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it. But as I said, don't know if I'm going to get the second one right away or if I'm going to be able to read it right away. So, I mean, a lot of these, while I am anticipating reading them at some point, I can't say that like I'm going to drop everything and read it as soon as it comes out, if you know what I mean. Number 5, biggest disappointment. So I have a couple, picks for this. There were only a handful of books that I was really, really disappointed in or didn't like that I read earlier this year. Some I wasn't expecting to be like a new favorite, but some of these I kind of was. So I'm going to talk about two today. The first is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I read that back in January and it just wasn't for me. I didn't like it. It was too much of a Lord of the Rings ripoff. Like, it was literally like the same plot in a lot of ways, and it really bothered me. I didn't connect to any of the characters. The world was fine. The writing was okay. Like, it just overall was a mediocre book for me. I'm still considering picking up The Great Hunt, which is the second book, just to see if it was like a first book thing that I just didn't like and then it gets better later. But if after the second book I still don't like it, I'm probably just gonna not continue with the series because it's a long one, it's a big one, and it's a big time commitment. And if I'm really not loving it, I don't know if I want to dedicate all of that time to something that I'm not loving. And then the second one that I was really disappointed in might surprise some people, but might not. And that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I just didn't like it. I read it with my college friends as part of our book club that we have, and I was the one who liked it the least out of everybody. I just didn't connect with the characters because of the way it was written. It was written in a vignette style, and so it's like there was a lot of time jumps, and I'm like, where is all of this character development happening? Like, all of a sudden, like, they went from this to this, and I'm like, where is the in-between? Why are you just showing me random gaps in time? And I just didn't have that connection with them, so that really bothered me. The plot was okay, like, it was interesting enough, but it wasn't, the most spectacular thing I've ever read. The writing style and format just really bothered me. And I mean, like, thinking back on it, it's kind of interesting because, basically what these people do, or the characters do, is they punch holes in the universe so they could, like, time jump or, like, jump or whatever. And I was like, that's kind of what she's doing with this format, and I appreciate that. It's interesting. But as a reader, it wasn't working for me. The world was the most interesting part, but I wish we got to spend more time with it and just kind of expand on it a little bit more. We got like a little bits here and there, and it just wasn't what I wanted. It had a lot of potential, but it just wasn't for me, and I probably won't continue on. You'd have to make a pretty compelling argument to get me to pick up the companion books, but who knows? Maybe one day in the far future I will maybe potentially pick up the second novel. Is it Record of a Spaceborne Few, or is that the third one? I don't know. But yeah, I was just really disappointed in both of those this year. Number 6 is The Biggest Surprise, and this one is the saga verse. I picked this up as part of my Friends Recommend series thing that I'm doing, and Vendi recommended Saga to me. I mean, it wasn't originally on my TBR, because I have a difficult time with graphic novels and comics and the way that they're formatted sometimes. So I was just like, it sounds interesting, but I'm not sure about it, kind of a thing. So she recommended it to me, and I was like, all right, I'll add it and I'll give it a try. And I ended up being pleasantly surprised and ended up really liking it, actually. It's an interesting world to be in, and I think that's what really draws me in, is the world more so than anything else. The world and the characters and just like their dynamics and the art style is all really unique and interesting. I've been making my way through the volumes this year, and as of filming, I'm getting ready to start volume 5 soonish, sometime this month, because I'm just reading one a month, so then I will be done with them, I think, by October, because there are 9 volumes out to date. I think there's supposed to be more. I don't actually know. Someone let me know that information. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it, kind of as much as I did. But I am getting sadder and sadder as each volume goes on. So that's interesting, I guess. 7 is favorite new author, and it can be a debut or someone who's new to you. And for this, I picked Rajani LaRocca, who is the author of Midsummer's Mayhem. I really, really loved reading that book earlier this year. It was one of the most delightful things I have read all year. It's baking magic and Shakespeare, and just, I love it so much. And I can't wait to read whatever she puts out next. I think she's doing a Much Ado About Nothing version. I don't know if it's baking magic too, or if it takes place in the same world. I don't know, but I am so excited for that one to come out. Is it next year? Kara, tell me, you know these things better than me. I'm just really looking forward to it. So yeah, she's just a lovely writer, and I really like how she's integrated everything together. It's just a delight. 8 is newest fictional crush, and I am changing this to newest OTP/newest ship, because that's more my thing than fictional crushes. Like, we know I can ship anything under the sun. Do I talk about it enough on this channel? Maybe not. Maybe I should do more of that. I don't know. But my newest ship, one of my newest ships that I wanted to talk about is Kit and Toby from An Assassin's Guide to Love and Treason. I loved that book, and honestly, it is so underrated. It pains me. It takes place in the 1600s, like early 1600s, like Elizabethan England time, kind of right at the end of her reign, and it just deals with the conflict between Catholics and Protestants and that whole mess that actually happened during that time, and the writing and production of Twelfth Night, which is, a Shakespeare play. It was so good, and I loved the dynamic and relationship of all forms between Kit and Toby. It's very high stakes, full of all kinds of pining, and just a lot of complicated things, because Kit, for the majority of the novel, is dressed up as a boy to kind of protect herself, because she watched her father get murdered, and she's pretty well known, I would guess. So she ended up dressing up as a boy, so that made it interesting from Toby's point of view, because he is he's bisexual, and so it's got a lot of really great and interesting representation in it as well. It's just their relationship is one of the best I've seen in a long time in a YA novel, because I think it's YA. Yeah, it is. And I really loved watching it unfold and form, and just all of it. Go read it if you haven't already. I cannot recommend it enough. It's A+. 9 is newest favorite character, and I had a hard time with this one because I've had kind of a lot of, I like a lot of different characters over the time, but one I ended up really liking recently is Wen Iffen, who is a side character in Bonds of Brass. She's delightful. She is just delightful. She doesn't take anybody's shit, first of all. Second of all, she is just a reckless human being, and same sometimes. And she just does her own thing and lives her own life, and I just love how genuine she is, and how perceptive she is and just how she truly cares about people. She's just so good and wonderful, and I absolutely love her, and I can't wait to see more of her storyline in the books to come, because there are 2 more books. It's a trilogy. I have a fluff monster. 10. Always my favorite question. A book that made you cry. Have I talked about the binding yet? Oh my god. Okay, so I loved the binding a whole lot. It was also one of my favorite books from this year, and it's a hard book to explain. Basically, people go to these people called binders when they want to forget something that was traumatic from their past, and it gets bound in a book. They never see the book again. It gets put in a shelf or hidden away, and nobody's supposed to read these books, because if you do, like, it's just, there's a whole political scheme about binding for these people. And we follows our main protagonist, Emmett Farmer, and he ends up going to be a binder's apprentice, and things kind of go from there. I haven't cried this hard at a book probably since I read Assassin's Fate. So that should tell you things right there, because I don't cry that hard at books, but this one really got to me. It was so beautiful, so atmospheric, so well done. I loved it so much. You should all read it and give it a try. But know that the way that this book was advertised is not necessarily what it is. Because I think it was advertised as a fantasy, and it has some fantasy-ish elements, but it's kind of more historical fiction-y / historical romancy. It's kind of complicated, but just kind of know that going in, the book is not going to be what you expect in any way. And like, even in the way that it's written, like, it's written in 3 parts. The 3 parts have different feels to them, so it almost feels like you're reading 3 different stories within this world. It's really interesting. So definitely keep that in mind going in, but it is incredibly emotional and A+. Also, minor spoiler, it's queer, so if whatever I just said didn't sell you, and that does, please, just, yes, go read it. Number 11, a book that made you happy. As we know, me and happy things are hard to come by, not super common, and it's kind of the same here. But one book or story that I did read that did make me happy was Alames or Jack in the Pits of Altania, because it's one of the few that could fit this question, and it's written in a Western style, which is generally not something I like, but the commentary from the person who was, I guess, editing the book, like, in world, was hilarious and made that book or that story so much better than it was originally. So that's literally why I'm picking it, because I just tend not to read happy things. That's just not my brand, not my MO. And I'm also trying not to reuse questions, because I mean, there were some other books that could have fit, but at the same time, so yes, like, a prime example would be Midsummer's Mayhem. I love that book. It made me so incredibly happy. But since I'm trying not to reuse things, we're going with Alames or Jack. Number 12, the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So here's the thing about me, if you don't know already. I don't get a lot of physical books. I mostly read ebooks, and when you get the ebook, you don't get to see the pretty covers. You get to see the pretty covers when you're, buying the thing, but you don't get to see the pretty covers. I only buy physical copies of books if they are important to me, or have made a really big impact on me, and I will probably end up rereading them. But from the get-go, I usually will get them in some way, shape, or form, in ebook form, or if my library actually has something for once, it's not a very common thing, I will get a copy from the library and read from that. Now, the one book that I did buy for myself this year, and does just so happen to have a pretty cover, is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Now, something you should know is this is not my favorite cover of this book. I love this cover, but it's not my favorite. I prefer the one that's kind of like goldeny and has like the outline of the cathedral on the front. I mean, this one has the outline of the cathedral on the front as well, but it's different. It's blue and weird brown. But this is the only copy that my Barnes & Noble had, which is fine, but you know, here we are. But basically, what this book is about, in a nutshell, is it takes place in 12th century England, and it follows a whole cast of characters as they are building this 12th century Gothic cathedral in a fictional town called Kingsbridge. And if I were to say anything else from there, it would be complicated. We'd be here for like an hour. And it's spoilery. So, it's kind of a thriller, historical fiction. It's hard to explain this book, but one interesting thing that it does do is it follows people from different aspects of society. So we follow an earl, we follow an earl's daughter, who ends up getting kind of cast out of her earldom. We follow an outlaw, we follow a mason, and a prior. I think that's it. I think there are 5 point of view characters. And it's really well done. It's really rough to read at times, but it's really well done. But anyway, let's talk about why I love this cover. So, first of all, I love the blue. I love blue. Blue is one of my favorite colors. And I also just love how intricate it is with all of the designs of the cathedral in the background. And also just the text. I really love like these kinds of calligraphy looking fonts on books. I just really like them. And it's a penguin. I didn't know that, but it is. And yeah, this is the only book that I bought for myself physically this year. And it also just so happens to be a really pretty one. So cheers to that. 13 is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? There are a fair few at this point that I need to read. I have my list of must-reads here, and then I have of course, my list of books that I want to prioritize. But the books that I have to get to that I haven't yet are Bloodwater Paint, Inda, Ancillary Justice, An Ember in the Ashes, The Fifth Season, Red Sister, and then finishing Royal Assassin. And there are a few others on here, but I don't know if I'm going to actually get to them. It might be unrealistic. All of the ones that I just named are either buddy reads I'm in the middle of or from my friends recommend. Those are definitely books that I am absolutely prioritizing this year. Out of all of the books, I'm making my way through them. I had 12 books on that list, so I've been reading 1 book a month. So I'm making my way through that, and it's been going really well so far. So I should be able to finish all of them up by the end of the year successfully. But anything can happen, so if you keep your fingers crossed. And then the last question is favorite book community member. And I'm not going to answer this question because I love so many people. I subscribe to so many wonderful people, and all of them are great. So I'm just not going to answer that question. But anyway, those are all the questions. I don't know who is already doing this or if you've been tagged, but if you see this and you want to do it, by all means do it and say I tagged you. But other than that, you guys know the drill. I have all of my social media links down below in the description, despite me basically being on a hiatus still. I usually only go on my Twitter about once a week these days. And then I do have my Goodreads link down below as well, and that I am on a little bit more frequently than once a week. And other than that, I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy during all of the chaos that the world has decided to throw at us this year. And I will catch you later in another video for you guys again soon. Bye!